When it comes to cloning merchants in Caves of Cud, the cloneling is invaluable. He can make 40 clones from 1 dram of cloning drought, but they can definitely be a little trouble. They can usually be found in Bethesda Susa, cloning the enemies. But if you want to use them, there's not that much you're going to need to clone as many copies of any character you want besides yourself. Rebuke robots is the easiest way to recruit them, but you can also proselytize them. Unfortunately, their feeble robot minds simply cannot comprehend the economic implications of their abilities. So they will continue to clone any NPC on the screen, and they have a unique talent for choosing the most useless ones, which would be okay if you would just stop cloning Darty. That means the first thing you're going to want to do is disable their ability to clone things, because letting them loose in the general area of whatever you want to clone usually doesn't work. They usually walk off and clone something completely different. In order to really control what they do, you're going to need the ganglionic teleprojector. This will let you override its feeble mind with your own to control them directly. These things can be bought or found in the caves around level 20. And once you put all this together, you'll only need cloning drought to fill your clonelings back up. I think this is a lot easier than spending a bunch of polygel to make cloning drought. At the very least, it is cheaper. And if you don't have the ganglionic teleprojector yet, you can just park them at your settlement. But you will eventually be able to pull this off. But I think it's pretty reasonable to assume you might not have proselytize or rebuke robots by the time you go to Bethesda Susa, which is why you should always use the elevator to skip a few levels and leave some of those clonelings alive until you can pull this off. They are a pretty high priority target in that dungeon, so you are going to want to kill quite a lot of them. They don't make great companions, so even if you do have proselytize, you might not want to grab them anyway, but you can leave them unproselytized outside of your settlement, so they can't cause too much trouble. Or just don't bother with them till later, it's fine. This might mean you skip the Alchemist, which is a unique liquids merchant in Bethesda Susa. He sells every liquid, including cloning drought. But it's really no great loss, and there's a good chance he'll blow himself up anyway. Unfortunately, he never restocks his inventory, so definitely don't spend 15 minutes making 50 clones of him. You can buy cloning drought from Ichor merchants, cooks, kippers, high-tier traders, and dromad merchants. The clonelings themselves have a chance to drop some, and you can always find a dram in a slime bog. You won't need a lot of metamorphic polygel to make a lot of cloning drought, but metamorphic polygel is so useful that I prefer to save it for other things like pumping your stats, and it'll still be more expensive than the ganglionic teleprojector. But why would you want to do any of this? You absolutely don't need to clone merchants to beat the game or to complete any of its content, but eventually you're going to have more money than you can spend. In a way, the most important reason to clone things is inventory management. And once you start getting a steady stream of those rare items, the sandbox really opens up. Kippers, cooks, and Ichor merchants make great cloning candidates because they can sell more cloning drought. But I think the most important merchants to clone are the plant merchants in the Yid Freehold and Ezra, who have the highest chance of selling metamorphic polygel, which is probably the most useful item in the game. But you don't have to stop there. Give the apes a second god. Even if you can't take him with you, he'll make a great replacement. Or you can take him out back and steal his hands. You can even clone yourself by cooking with cloning drought. This will give you 1 to 3 clones of yourself with all of your mutations and cybernetics. These clones are automatically followers, and they are perfectly replaceable. But a curious thing happened to me. I read something on Reddit that said you were supposed to cook with a mixture of cloning drought and convalescence, which I tried before checking anywhere else, and it worked. About half the time. I'm sure you can see the problem right away, but at the time, I had no idea. So I used the skill Carbide Chef to guarantee the effect, but it only required convalescence to clone myself. I was able to repeat this. It does take more than one inspiration sometimes, because the cloning effect doesn't always pop up as an option for a recipe, but then it's basically free. So if you do this, you can make your own faction for nothing. Though this will definitely tank your frame rate. But anything less than 20 should be fine. The cooking exploit might not be necessary unless you really like making clones of yourself. Unfortunately, the only other liquid with an effect worth exploiting is neutron flux. and neutron flux does not mix well. It's still safer than trying to clone yourself with the cloneling. Maybe not for the damage the clone does, but losing that cloneling definitely hurts. They are essentially finite. I don't know another place to get them besides Bethesda Susa. They probably do have a chance to spawn as a historical site enemy or something like that, but I just haven't seen another one anywhere else. And remember, if your frame rate is low, you can always dispose of your clones ethically through nuclear warfare. You are the Sultan after all or something. Lore video coming never. But while you may have an understandable desire to kill all clonelings on sight, I hope now you can appreciate that they can be useful sometimes. Cloning yourself this many times is definitely less useful, but I did like finding out that there's an easy way to get a pretty reliable and replaceable follower. They don't even need proselytize or beguiling or anything like that. But using clonelings is a pretty easy and effective strategy that you don't need to be a super high level to pull off. And again, you can just leave a few clonelings alive at Bethesda Susa until you're ready to try this, but I think the next video will be about some early game strategies. Because there's a lot you can do in character creation that's just going to make those first 5 levels a lot easier for you. But thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks.